Welcome to Momentum's virtual training series, where we invite expert facilitators to share their knowledge on topics that advance women in leadership.
Hello to everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. We are so excited to have Kelli Thompson with us. She has got so much to teach us. So have your pen ready because she is going to definitely help you understand a lot of things. She's a great communicator. She is also the author of this book. I have loved this book. I have loved being on her email list of getting her Tuesday newsletters. She is a facilitator here with us at Momentum Leaders to our executive class, and we have appreciated everything she's poured into us. So, Kelli, I don't want to take up all your time. I just want to turn it right on over to you and get you started for today. Thank you for being here.
Awesome. I know I'm so excited to be here. So I am going to have you stop sharing and then I will take over the presentation and we'll get started. So what I did was I'm going to be covering a lot of tools today. And so I just popped a link in the chat that if you want, so you don't have to ferociously write and you want a place to capture all tools, you can do so by downloading the link, and there will be more opportunities for you to do so as well. I also love to always be participating in the chat because we can have lots of conversations. And that leads to my very first question for you all. And that is this: how would you define resilience? Tell me in the chat, how would you define resilience? If somebody, there's so many definitions of resilience flying out there that I would just love to hear how everybody would describe it. All right. Grit, bounces back, unstoppable, perseverance, strong-willed, ability to bounce back, doesn't give up, overcome setbacks, can push through, can stay the course, flexibility. Ooh, I love these. There's such a wide variety, right? Persevering. I know you meant to be flexible, right? There's all these different definitions of what resilience looks like. And so I want us to level set before I begin today about what resilience is and what resilience is not, and how you can foster resilience as a leader so that you can lead with more clarity and confidence. So let's just first talk about what resilience is not. I think sometimes resilience gets the rap that it's about being able to handle anything that throws at you. And I think sometimes we think resilience is like this loud thing of like, oh my gosh, I have all of these challenges. But actually, that's what resilience is not. Resilience is not self-criticism and saying, oh, if only I could get my stuff together, if only I had more of this, if only, then I would be able to do that. I think sometimes we get really hard on ourselves and we think it's being resilient. Sometimes I think we think that resilience is like shutting down all of our emotions so that we can focus on a task. Or maybe we think that resilient is about like hustling as hard as we can, or pushing ourselves to the limit. I know that in my own personal life, I always thought I was so resilient because I was a strong woman. I'd be curious, tell me in the chat, how many of you resonate with the term or have called yourself a strong woman? I feel like I'm a strong woman. But I also had to learn that being a strong woman doesn't mean I tolerate a lot of BS. And I think sometimes we think that being resilient or being tough or being strong, well, what it causes is we just end up tolerating poor behavior and we don't have good boundaries. And what I know resilience is not, is it is not an exhaustion badge, which I know is something we don't like to hear in our culture, because our culture loves to walk around whenever we ask people, oh, how's it going? Oh, it's busy, right? Resilience is not an exhaustion badge. What resilience is, and this definition is literally from the American Psychological Association, it is about adapting to challenges. It is about having compassion for ourselves, recognizing all of those tough emotions and our limitations and evolutions. It's mental and emotional flexibility in spite of new challenges and circumstances. It's behavioral adjustments, which we're going to talk a lot about today. It's withstanding adversity, but not tolerating poor behavior. And it is about having the tools and the skills to bounce back. But here's the thing, we can't bounce back if we are overworked and overwhelmed. And so here's how I want to set us up for resilience today. Because here's the thing, it's hard to be a resilient, confident leader if you are overworked and overwhelmed. So if you have either in your hair or around you a rubber band or a ponytail holder, this is how I want to think about resilience. Okay. I think sometimes we think that resilience is like, how far can I stretch? How much tension can I hold? And so I want us just to notice how much we think that resilience is putting ourselves to the limit. But what actually happens is that when we push ourselves to the limit, have you ever had a ponytail holder that did this, where it's got that little thing because it's been stretched to the limit, so now it doesn't like fit around your hair anymore? We snap because we think that like being stretched to our limit, having this exhaustion badge, is all about what resilience looks like. But what that does is it keeps us from bouncing back. I can't use this ponytail holder anymore because it like doesn't hold my hair. But here's the thing. Resilience is also about no challenge, because what happens for those of y'all who've ever put somebody's hair in a ponytail, if we don't have any resistance, well, then my hair falls out. So today, this is not about having no resilience. This is not about stretching ourselves to the limit to do all the things that we can. Today, I want to talk about the things that are in the way of optimal challenge, of optimal resistance. Because good optimal resistance keeps us moving forward. It holds our hair just perfectly, but I want us to kind of come back to this rubber band or stretchy analogy. So first, I want to talk about what's getting in the way of being the most clear and confident leader we can be so that we can have this optimal level of resilience. Tell me in the chat, who remembers this challenge? Give me your yes or no. Did you ever do the ice bucket challenge? This was like what, circa 2015, maybe? Y'all remember the ice bucket challenge? I had a really good, you remember it, but you didn't do it. Okay, so some of you remember the ice bucket challenge. So the ice bucket challenge was a response to, tell me in the chat, was it ALS? It was like an ALS Foundation fundraiser. And this always makes, thank you, good. It makes me remember the time that I was in corporate America. And every year, our organization had a major fundraising campaign, which was amazing. This is what made this organization wonderful to work with in the community. And every year they looked for a leader. And I remember my leader came to me and she said, Kelli, would you like to lead the annual fundraiser this year? And I sat back in my chair and I thought about her request and I thought about watching the other people who have led it. And in my mind went through, I'm already busy in my day job. This is going to be a lot of commitment, a lot of meetings, a lot of asking for money, a lot of, just extra out of work, a lot of convincing people. There was just going to be a lot to go in it. And I told her, I said, frankly, no, I don't. I'll pause. Have any of you ever been asked to lead the corporate company fundraiser? I knew the amount of work that was going to go in. But she said, Kelli, this opportunity would really give you a lot of exposure. You get a lot of exposure to senior leadership. You would get a lot of exposure to decisions. You get a lot of exposure to, the leader of this division. I really think you should reconsider. And of course, that was her way of saying, I really think you're going to do this. And so I thought about it and I thought, okay, I think maybe I could do this for exposure. And I'll pause. You can tell me in the chat, have any of you ever done anything for exposure? So I led the fundraiser. And what that meant is I had to find division captains and then I had to have meetings with those division captains. And then we had to set goals. And then we had to make sure that all the fundraising events were happening. And then I was getting all the reports back because with their reports, I have to send it up to our executive champion, which was the chief of my division. Of course, the chief of my division wasn't writing his own emails. So then I had to write his emails that could be sent out with his name on it. I think you all know the types of things that this entails. And so I remember we get to the end and we exceeded our goals. And I kept waiting for this moment in which I was going to get so much exposure. And we were on the 40th floor of the tower that I worked in. And I remember the leader of the division whose name was on the leading thing of it, basically was going around saying, what happened and how we, exceeded our goals. And he goes, oh yeah, and by the way, thanks to Kelli for organizing some of this. I literally got a 2-second mention. It never showed up on my performance review. It didn't show up in the form of a bonus. And it didn't help me accelerate my career and move forward. And I was still, but yeah, Kathy says in the chat, by the way, I was still waiting for all of this exposure that was going to be happening. And sadly, as women leaders in organizations, it is not uncommon for us to be asked to do these sort of things with the promise of exposure. And what really was happening was it was just exposing my lack of energy. Because if I wasn't in those extra meetings, I was dreading those extra meetings. I was dreading the emails I had to draft and send. And all of that was taking a toll on the amount of energy that I could bring to my daily leadership. And this is where, you know, we as women leaders, we have a little bit of a conundrum because we take on typically an extra 2 hours per day of unpaid labor. You know, lots of times I ask groups if someone's partner, if they're married to a man, knows had their child, like could get to the doctor, would make an appointment. And most people raise their hands and say no. So unpaid labor is not just cooking and cleaning. It's all of the things. It's like, when's the last time my kids have been to the dentist? Who's going to get my kids to the dentist? I got to take my kids to the doctor. How are my kids getting to the doctor? Sometimes it's thinking of all of the things that is this unpaid labor that women are thinking about. Why are they all, while they're also at work? And I'd love for you to tell me in the chat, what is some of this unpaid labor at home that you are always thinking about while you're at work? Maybe it's the carpool. Maybe it's your kid to sports. Maybe it's like, I think my kid blew out his shoe and we got to go get more shoes. I don't know when I'm going to get more shoes. It's all of this sort of stuff. What research has also found, Linda Babcock found this, it was published in Harvard Business Review, is that on average, women get 44% more requests to volunteer at work. And these can be things like, hey, can you lead this committee for quote unquote exposure? And more often than not, women will say yes more often than men. Now, the good news is that, you know, women actually score higher on most 360 feedback as a leader. And I'm convinced that women have stronger leadership and relationship building and collaborative skills because we lead all of these sorts of committees that, you know, involve people. However, it doesn't help us in our advancement abilities, and it contributes to a lack of resilience and burnout because we are overworked, we are overstressed, we are trying to do all of these things that expend energy we don't have that can keep us from bouncing back instead of keeping our energy focused on our goals and our values and our intentions. Yeah, and you all are popping in the chat all of these, you know, different things that you have to do. And even if you don't have children, I have so many clients that are just caregivers in general. Maybe they're part of the sandwich generation and they have elderly, you know, parents they have to care for. I have clients who have neighbors that they pop in and care for. And so even if you don't have kids, you may find yourself being a caregiver of some sort that just requires all of this extra energy. So let's just check in and see if you've ever been on the other end of any of these non-promotable tasks that could be taking some of your resilience energy. All right, so let's play a little bingo. All right. You can mark a note. If you want to pop it in the chat, you can just give it a yes or just whatever. If you've ever been asked to take the meeting notes. You can just mark a note or tell me in the chat if you've ever been asked to organize the office party, whatever that party might be, like birthday party, anniversary party. Yeah, we got lots of stuff going on. Mark a note, tell me in the chat if you've ever been asked to run the office errands. Like, oh, hey, can you do this on your way home? Can you drop this bank deposit? Can you take this to this other branch? Can you, whatever that is. How many of you have ever said yes to additional projects for exposure? I know I just gave a story of how, oh, you're going to get so much exposure for this. How many of y'all have ever had to pick up the coffee or the lunch orders when there was plenty of other willing participants that could do that? How many of you have ever, I laugh at this one, that's like, it seems if something in the break room breaks down, you were the only one that knew how to fix it. Whether it is the printer or restocking the break room or something that had to do with like some sort of like administrative activity. How many of y'all have ever led your employee resource group unpaid? No stipend, no advancement, no mention. How many of y'all have ever said yes to leading a non-strategic committee? This could be like a volunteer sort of thing, like I had to lead, right? Some sort of non-strategic committee where the outcomes of the committee, you know, weren't, you know, meaningful to business outcomes or, you know, wasn't going to be put on your performance review. So I see some folks saying bingo. Pop it in the chat. If you got a bingo, just tell me you got a bingo. Y'all got bingos. You know, last week I spent some time with the executive group in Birmingham, and I played this live, and we had to do some stand-up sit-downs. And I thought maybe even women at this executive level wouldn't have a bingo, but they had a bingo. And so the reason why I want to call this to our attention is these are all these little things that stretch our energy that men aren't doing. And so I'm not going to stand here and tell you today to be a more resilient and confident leader. You need to like do yoga and mindfulness and add all of these things. Today, I want to teach you tools for what you can remove that's standing in the way of you being a more clear and confident and resilient leaders. Because to step into our roles as leaders, it's not time to, be a stronger leader by doing more things. In fact, I have a hunch if you're anything like the women that I've coached or I've spoke to, you are probably already doing too much. You're probably overachieving. You're probably overeducated. You're probably over all of these things. So it's time to lead more by doing less. So how do we do less? I'm going to give you 4 keys today to lead more by doing less so that you can be a more resilient and confident leader. We're going to talk about how we lose these limiting beliefs that keep us saying yes when we want to say no. We're going to talk about how do we express our expectations in a new way? How do we shift from doer to leader or from high achiever to strategic leader? And how do we start delegating? And if you missed the link that was dropped in the chat, if you want to not frantically write down all the notes and you want the tools that I'm teaching you today, you can download this free chapter from my book that also has the toolkit at the end of it, and it's all there for you. So you can scan the code. Thank you, Lindsay. She also popped it in the chat for you. So, one of the roles that I was in corporate America that made it really easy to say yes was the majority of my career was spent leading training teams. And so we were one of those departments that just got a lot of requests. Everybody was like, see if training will do it. They need training. They need training. They need training. This training was the solution to everything. If something wasn't happening, they need training. And so what that meant is that we had lots of requests to do things. And especially as a young leader, and honestly, as a mid-career leader, let's be honest, I said yes to a lot of those things. I think I internalized that like you should just always say yes and figure it out later. I'd be curious if you want to tell me in the chat, what are those messages maybe that you always internalized about saying yes? Maybe culturally, your family or your organization always had this mantra, say yes and figure it out later. I know that I had a leader like that who used to tell me that all the time. You just say yes and you figure it out later. Say yes and you figure it out later. But what was happening was I was saying yes to so many things that I started to spread my team's resources too thin. I started to say yes to so many things that we were struggling with capacity on our calendar to deliver on all those things. I started to say yes to so many things. I started to get nervous at the end of the quarter that my team was going to be at risk for actually achieving some of the goals that we put forth that are actually on our strategic roadmap. And yeah, I love what you all are saying. Like your team is dealing with this right now. Your promotion advancement depends on you saying yes. If I don't say yes, I'll be overlooked. Oh my gosh, absolutely. You won't get a seat at the table if you don't say yes. So one of the things that I've learned is that I had some limiting beliefs that were keeping me saying yes. And I've worked with thousands of women, and I've kind of boiled down to, I believe there's 4 common reasons why we keep saying yes when we really should be saying no. So let's just do a little quiz here, and you can tell me in the chat which one resonates with you. And you can't just pick one. Sometimes it's like mostly 1 with a little bit of 4. So let's just see where we land. Let's see who's in the room. So one of the reasons why I think we keep saying yes when we should be saying no is there's like this capability achievement belief. Like this thought that like, if I don't say yes, if I say no, they're going to think I'm not capable. Or they're going to think I'm not smart. They're going to think I'm not successful. They're going to question why they hired me. Some people have this thought that, oh gosh, if I say no, people are going to be so unhappy with me and I'm going to lose their approval. Some people have a belief that, they are responsible and they need to support other people. And so if I say no, people will think I don't support them. They'll think that I'm not like this responsible person. And then reason number 4 is a little bit of perfectionism. I have to say yes so that I look perfect. And what often happens with these clients is that they will stall on a project or keep reiterating and procrastinating on that project until it is perfect. So tell me in the chat, what resonates? And yeah, Sally says, it could be any one of the 4, kind of maybe depending on it. Absolutely. 1 with a side of 4. Yeah, I think I'm 1 with a little bit of 2. I remember, definitely thinking about that. And I know as just to be totally honest, running my own business, I thought that this would go away once I left corporate. It in fact did not. It got worse. Because when I was out running my own business, all of a sudden I wasn't getting paid every 2 weeks. And I had to say yes to some things so that I could earn an income. And I remember thinking, if I say no, I'm never going to get asked again. And they're going to question my capability. They're going to question my achievements. I'm going to fail. And so, yeah, I mean, there's all these reasons why we say yes when we want to say no. And one of the things that I started to realize is that perhaps, like, once we can identify which one of these things is driving yeses, unwarranted yeses, yeses that are getting in the way, yeses that are like absolutely stretching our resilience as far as it can go, is that, we're saying yes to things that we shouldn't say yes to. It's causing us to behave in certain ways. So the first thing that I had to ask myself, and the question I ask my clients, and I want you to all ask this of yourself too, is my belief even true? I'll use myself as an example. Is it even true that if I say no, people will question my capability? Do I even know if that's true or not? In fact, I can test this by saying, could the opposite be just as true? That if I say no, people will believe in my capability. I really want you to just stop and find some evidence of that. Because here's the thing. If I keep saying yes to too many things, tell me in the chat, what happens to my perceived capability? If I say yes to too many things, what happens to somebody's perceived capability? It declines, yes. What happens when we keep saying yes to too many people? What happens to our ability to keep people happy? We can't. Yeah, like Concetta, you're on it. You will not be able to perform at 100%. And when you don't perform at 100%, people question your capability. You won't make people happy and you're trying to make everybody happy. You make nobody happy. And whose piece are you really keeping? Is it theirs or is it yours? Right? Yeah, our performance decline, we get overextended, we can't perform, we get stressed, right? Like we think we're being resilient, but we're not. We are stretching so far, we are about to break. We aren't even bendable. We're not even flexible. And so I really want you to notice, how could overextending on saying too many yeses actually create the situations you want to avoid? People question your capability. You don't make people happy. People feel unsupported. And you look quite imperfect because you're delivering things with a lot of errors. So I want you to ask yourself and find evidence. Could the opposite be just as true? Is it true that when I say no, people believe in my capability? I have to say no all the time. I had to say no 3 times this week to something, right? My capability isn't questioned. It just wasn't the right fit. I'm busy. I wasn't available. When I had to say no as, a training department, our capability was not questioned. In fact, I think our capability was elevated because Kelli's team knows their strategic roadmap. They know the things that they need to be performing. They're saying yes to those things and they're delivering results and they're busy. They have to fit her into the busy schedule. So I want you to notice how, when I say no, how could it be just as true that I keep people happy? When I say no, people still feel supported. When I say no, I can still deliver high integrity results. Yes, and empowering your team to say no. We're going to talk about that. And I think the bigger question here is, does saying yes to this move me closer to the type of leader I want to become? Really getting conscious and intentional about, what does a yes mean? What does it mean for, my skills, my talents, it's on my roadmap, what I'm meant to deliver? Is it in alignment with my values and the type of person and leader that I want to become? And so knowing your values and your goals, getting clear on your intentions, helps you choose your best yeses and nos, because you can take that pause and say, if I say yes to this thing, even though it looks maybe even fun, is it going to move me closer to the type of leader I want to become? Or is it just going to be a distraction? Is it going to stretch me so far that I'm breaking and I'm not staying bendable and flexible and able to bounce back? So you're talking about, okay, how do we say no? I want to talk about that. So perhaps you found yourself in a situation, you're like, okay, I need to say no more often so that my yeses on my calendar are in alignment with my goals, my values, my intentions, and the type of leader I want to become, the type of team we want to become. And so I think it was tempting when I started to realize this, just to drop my no hammer. Nope, we can't. Nope, we can't. Nope, we can't. And I think sometimes when we do become aware of this, I see my clients struggle with this a lot, where we start to drop the no hammer and we over rotate on saying no on everything. So how can we say no in a way that feels good, that's collaborative, so that actually helps us foster relationships and not break relationships? So I always believe in starting with gratitude and just, showing gratitude that this person thought of you. When they thought of who could help them, who should they go to, like they thought of you. So can we just show some gratitude? Wow, thank you so much for coming to my team. The second step is just letting people know what you commit, like what you commit to, what you're striving for. Right now, my team is dedicated to delivering sales training by the end of the quarter. And so then letting them know what you can accommodate. So unfortunately, I won't be able to accommodate this, customer service training request, next week when you're, wanting it. But how about we sit down and talk about what a helpful date of this training delivery would look like for you? Or how about we talk about maybe what resources might be available online for you that can hold you over until we can address the situation more fully? And so all the time, people would come and say, hey, it'd be like Thursday. And they would come to my team. They're like, can you do a workshop for my team on Tuesday? And so it might just sound like, thank you so much for asking and thinking of us. We want to make sure that this workshop is relevant and it's high energy. And that typically takes about 2 weeks to get information and prepare. How does this date look for your team? And so by having a more collaborative conversation, we can start conversations about what it looks like to work together instead of stopping conversations about what it looks like to work together. You might be thinking, okay, well, what if people get mad? What if people have comments? So you might hear a lot of things. How many of you have ever heard this, any of these responses? Your predecessor would have done it for me. People won't like this answer. Isn't this your job? This is easier with your colleagues and your supervisor. So Kathy, I want to address that directly. I would challenge you to maybe think about, why do we feel that it is hard to do it with our supervisor? And I want to give you an example. I have a business manager. She does all my online operations work. She's like literally my boss. Okay. She keeps me together. And what happens is as somebody who runs her own business and is really excited about it, I tend to have lots of ideas. And so I will never forget that it was like last November and I was all jazzed up about something. And so I email her and I was like, hey, her name's Kristen. It's like, hey, Kristen, can you look into this, blah, 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 blah. I don't even remember what it was. And she did this so beautifully. And I want to give you this as a script to use with your own leader. She said, ooh, that sounds like a really cool idea. I'm still committed to delivering the thing you asked me about last week, which you said you wanted this Friday. Would you like me to push that deliverable aside so you can work on the thing that you just told me about now? And I was like, oh my gosh, that was the most beautiful boundary that somebody has ever set with their leader. And all she did was just saying, hey, I hear you. You're excited. Do you want me to set aside or push back this thing you told me to work on last week? And then I had a choice. I'm like, I'd even forgotten because I got excited. I totally forgot that I told her to work on that. And I think sometimes as leaders, sometimes we delegate things and we forget to tell people that, oh, you can stop working on that thing. And so I think it's always appropriate to have that conversation with your leader to say, sure, I'll do that. Do you want me to set aside this thing that I'm working on so I can do that for you? So with these statements, handling objections, here's the thing. They're right. Their predecessor probably would have done it for them. They're right. People probably won't like this answer. And you know what? You're probably right. I have done this before. So we can get in an argument about who's right, or we can just let them be right and talk about what the future looks like and what we're committing to. Your predecessor would have done this for me. Yep, you're right. I know they used to do that in the past, but now that we're focused on this is how I'd like to proceed. People won't like this answer. As somebody who used to run HR, I got this all of the time. Everybody's going to quit. If you do this, people won't like this answer. This could be true, but I'd like to discuss what's best for the organization and what's in alignment for our values. Isn't this your job? You've done this for me before. Yeah, I have done this in the past, but our priorities have changed. Let's talk about what successful outcomes look like. And so here's the thing. At the end of the day, when it comes to expressing our expectations, we are always teaching people how to treat us. And so if they know that they can just come and give everything to us and we will always say yes, we will always be the first person that they think of, and we will always be stretching to our limit and always stretch to our resilience max with no room for buffer or flexibility. So you are always teaching people how to treat you, whether they can run all over you and exert their agenda, or where you're going to have just a good collaborative conversation about what success looks like. So let's pause for a moment. So we talked about the first two keys. Let's learn why we say yes when we should say no. Let's talk about how to express our expectations. So I have a question for you as we get into the last two keys. What are you doing? Tell me in the chat. What are you doing right now that you shouldn't be doing, but you're hanging on to it because you're scared to delegate it? This can be work and home, okay? This can be work and home. What are you doing that you shouldn't be doing, but you're hanging on to it because you're scared to delegate it? Like, I can think of so many home examples of things that I should have been delegating to my daughter, but I was scared she wouldn't clean it as good as me. I was scared that maybe she wouldn't write it as good as me. Yeah, taking the kids to their appointments, even just things at work, delivering presentations, like still putting together PowerPoint decks that I shouldn't have been doing because I was so scared that maybe somebody wouldn't put a period in the right spot. Or you don't want to sound bossy. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. I hear that a lot. I don't want to sound bossy. We could have a whole conversation on that, because the opposite of that is that Gallup's engagement survey shows that one of the top levels of engagement is, do I feel fulfilled and stretched and challenged at my job? Do I have the opportunity to learn new things? And if us as leaders are hoarding those things, people can't learn new things. Yeah, cleaning the kids' rooms, items that need to be done timely, individual contributor tasks, even though I'm a director, amen, Kathy. I hear it all of the time. So I want you to really think about, what are you doing that you shouldn't be doing, but you're hanging on to it because you're too scared to delegate? And I want you just to think about that as we go through this next section. I wrote this article for the Harvard Business Review, and I'm happy to share the link at the end. I'm sure you can Google it, because in this article, I told the story of, in my career, that I wanted to get more experience presenting to executive leadership. And so I went to my boss and I said, hey, I would like this experience. I want to get more time in front of executive leaders. And she goes, oh my gosh, amazing. She's like, that PowerPoint deck that you prepare every month and you send to me and then I go present it? She goes, I'm going to have you go present it next month. So I was like, okay, So that day comes and I ride up to the top of all 40 floors of the tower. And I remember in the room was my boss, her boss, the president of the company, and I believe the CFO was there as well. And as I start presenting, I start thinking to myself, okay, so far, so good. And then all of a sudden, the leader started asking me questions that I did not know the answers to. And I don't know if you have ever been in one of those meetings, but I started to get the wet red neck. My armpits are getting all sweaty. I'm starting to struggle a little bit. How many of y'all have ever been into those meetings where somebody is struggling to present in front of an entire group? Tell me in the chat. And what does it feel like? Tell me if you've been in one of those meetings. Just drop me a yes. And what is it like? Yes. You've been there. Myself. It's anxious. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. It's kind of like watching a Ben Stiller movie where you're like, oh, just stop while you're ahead, right? Yeah, exactly. Sometimes that's me. But here's the thing. My leader didn't intervene. She just sat there and she allowed me to continue to present and struggle through the questions. And she only answered questions when they directed the questions at her. And so some of you are going, she didn't help you. This is where I want you to start to think about your leadership differently. Because here's the thing. She prepped them that this is my first time. She prepped them that I wanted to build my skills. Even though I was struggling, the temptation to jump in and save me was so great, but she didn't. And so when the meeting was over, we got back in the elevator, we started to ride all 40 floors down. And she's like, so how do you think that went? And I was like, oh my gosh, I was struggling, blah, 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 blah. She goes, I noticed that too. She kind of let me off the hook a little bit. She said, you know what though? Don't worry. I prepped them. They were having a little fun with you. I'm like, oh, okay. She goes, but those are questions you are going to need to know someday as you accelerate into leadership. They were giving a preview of the types of things that you need to be able to answer. So how are you going to prepare differently the next time you do this? Who can you go talk to who you think presents really well in front of senior leadership? I immediately named two people. She goes, I want you to go to them. I want you to find out how they prepare, and you're going to weave that into your approach when you go do this again the next time. I was like, oh my gosh. So what did my leader teach me? If she would have jumped in and answered like I probably would have, she would have taught me what? This is a great mentoring moment. Yeah. She would have taught me that, you know what? I only need to prepare this far, because if I struggle, she'll save me. But she didn't. Yeah, she would have taught me to be dependent. And I think all too often we see our teams struggle. And as leaders, we are so uncomfortable with the struggle that we jump in, we fix, we save the day, and it creates codependency on our teams. Our teams never learn to level up. And our resilience is stretched to the max because we're the one jumping in and saving the day all the time. And so this is a huge shift. I think, from being my own leadership, being in human resources, all too often we promote people from doer to leader and just think that a magic transformation happens overnight, that people are going to lose this identity of being the high achiever and being the doer and getting the gold stars and the check marks and the Sally, you're the best, you're so fast, it's amazing, right? All the things. And, our whole lives, we've been brought up to, get rewarded on capability, success, rewards. We get a payoff from that. And sometimes we confuse our who with our do. We believe that who we are is what we do. What we do is who we are, and who are we if we are not the ones getting all the accolades? It keeps us stuck in tasks that are non-promotable. It keeps us stuck in easy tasks instead of moving into that more strategic leader. Because at the end of the day, as a leader, we want to celebrate team wins. We want to delegate the safe, and we want to learn how to be a great coach. And this starts with noticing our focus of energy. You might notice in my example with my leader, there was two choices of energy she could have chose: intervening energy or facilitating energy. Intervening energy fosters dependency. It means that every time I see someone maybe almost messing up, not doing something the way I would do something, I jump in. Well, that person learns that, well, I might as well not even attempt to do this because my leader is just going to come in and take it over anyway. And it creates codependency where we can't operate independent of one another. Sometimes intervening energy comes from this place of not being needed. Well, if I'm not the one doing this, then how do I add value? We overhelp because it feels good. It feels good to help. I mean, I love being a coach and a leader, and I loved being in training because I liked helping. It feels good. But overhelping sometimes uses our empathy to disempower others instead of empower others. We overuse empathy when we overhelp, and that causes disempowerment instead of empowerment. It soothes people. It removes pain. Sometimes we jump in and fix things or make exceptions. We kind of have this I'll save the day, I overstep boundaries just a little too quick. But in that meeting, she had facilitating energy. She allowed me to think through and struggle to find the answer. She trusted me. At the end of the day, she trusted me that she knew I would come up with the answer, even though I was struggling. After the end of the meeting, she got really curious. How do you think that went? Who do you know that presents well? What might you change in your approach? She did not tell me one thing of how I could do better. She got really curious. She held space for my discomfort. And this is key. She supported me without attaching her identity, her success to my outcomes. She recognized that this was about me, and she doesn't have to be attached to how I did in that moment. She allowed me to problem solve and learn. And in that, she set healthy boundaries. And so I think sometimes we get into intervening energy and we struggle with delegating when we get caught in the overwhelm cycle. And this comes when we get to project or task overwhelmed. We are stretched to our max because we've said yes to so many things. We haven't set boundaries. It feels good to be the doer all the time. And so sometimes when we are stretched to the max, we get forced to delegate and we just pull something off our plate. And what happens when we're forced to delegate? Lots of times that's when mistakes are made. Of course, people are going to make a mistake because maybe it's their first time doing it, or they just don't do it the same way you would do it. The look and the feel is not the same way you would do it. And so what do we do when mistakes are made? We take it back. You know what? I have to do it. I have to fix this. What mindset, what goes through your mind when you have to take things back? Tell me in the chat. Have y'all ever had to take something back before, either at work or at home? And then what happens when you have to take that thing back? It feels like failure. It feels like anger. Yes. Yeah, it's I agree. It feels like we feel disappointment. Yeah, frustration. Absolutely. I might as well have done it myself. Amen. Exactly. Proof that I shouldn't delegate. Amen, Kathy. That's what we think. Well, I'm the only one that can do anything around here. And we don't delegate again. And the whole overwhelm cycle keeps going. This is how I see women get stuck in unstrategic work We start to feel alone. We're overwhelmed. We don't delegate. We're hoarding. And when they come to me finally, maybe through like a coaching engagement, they are so overwhelmed and so dissatisfied with their job because they haven't taken on any fun new tasks. They're burdened because they are caught in the overwhelm cycle of being forced to delegate. Mistakes are made. We take it back. I'm the only one that can do anything out around here. So to make this shift from doer to leader and to get out of the overwhelm cycle, we have to get comfortable with the discomfort of growth. And I'm going to give you 2 tools to get out of the overwhelm cycle. Tool number 1, and I want you to tell me in the chat, you told me a little bit, what 2 to 3 emotions arise when you watch someone struggle after you delegate? Maybe it's your child trying to do something alone for the first time after you delegate. Or like when my daughter was a teenager, going through the discomfort of my daughter going, oh, bruh. That's what they call parents now. Bruh, it's terrible, right? Or we watch employees do it and they're doing it for the first time and you're like, oh, yeah, concern. I'm going to pop you an emotions wheel. If you've never seen an emotions wheel, you can name your emotions. I know I always felt anxious, helpless, annoyed, frustrated, maybe a little dismayed, confused at times. I'm like, where did that come out of that delegation assignment, right? I want us to be more resilient. Being more resilient requires us to stop in those moments and name our emotions. Pause one moment longer to be comfortable with the discomfort of allowing people to struggle. Because tell me in the chat, yeah, LaQuaylen, you're right. Being the hero in their own story, we don't rescue them, but support them to the end. What does struggle afford people to do? Tell me in the chat. Why should we allow people to struggle? Grow, we overcome, right? Yeah, growth. The only way that we grow is through struggle, right? That's how we learn. I love to lift weights every morning and I love using weights as an analogy, right? In order to, build muscle, you have to break the muscle down. You kind of have to injure it. It has to go through a lot of struggle to go for growth, right? Same thing is, to build muscle or to run faster and get better, you can't just like lollygag. You have to have some sort of resistance and struggle for us to learn and grow. And so I want to give you a tool that you can use as you watch people struggle. Absolutely, Marciana, it builds confidence. I just want you to notice it with a lot of compassion. Just notice the struggle without jumping into intervening energy, with a lot of compassion, and just name it. You know what? This person is learning a new thing. This person is trying this for the first time. This is their first attempt. Like, I notice that I'm feeling uncomfortable because I'm watching someone do this for the first time. Just naming it. I notice I'm feeling uncomfortable. I notice I'm feeling uncomfortable. And normalizing it. Of course I'm feeling uncomfortable for this person. You know why? Because I care about them. I care about good work, right? I care about their growth and development. I care about them as a person. If I didn't care about them as a person, I wouldn't feel these hard feelings. So we just normalize it. And then we just reframe it. This is what growth feels like. Feeling uncomfortable emotions means that they're stretching their resilience bands. It's feeling uncomfortable. They're moving to the edges of their comfort zone. And then we can act on it through offering support without taking over. So the last tool for shifting your identity from doer to leader, getting out of the overwhelm cycle, is to first notice and name your emotions and pause for one moment longer just to get comfortable with the discomfort that comes with growth. The second thing is, I want you to start delegating when the stakes are low. All too often, people make too many high impact mistakes that cause us to take back a delegation because we've delegated when the stakes are far too high. But we need to delegate when the stakes are really, really low. Like, a good example is with my daughter. She's now in college, but when she got her first job at age 15, we went and got her a bank account, and we did very little to help her manage her money. Because at that point, she's getting $100 every 2 weeks. The stakes are very low. So if she spends too much money on a sweatshirt that all of her friends have, and then she runs out of gas money to go out with said friends, like, that's a consequence. The stakes are so low. And when she starts to learn those money mistakes, when the stakes are low, now that she's off in college, she's got some repetitions under her belt. Now that the stakes are much higher and that she has more expenses that she has to pay for to keep her life moving forward. So I want you to think about what is one low stakes activity that you can delegate. If you want to drop it in the chat, go ahead and drop it in the chat. And here's a good test to see if the stakes are low enough. I want you to expect that whoever you delegate it to is going to make a mistake. Plan on it. Hope for it. Expect it. Because when people make mistakes, that's where the magic happens. That's where the growth happens. That's where the ahas happen. So yeah, that's a great one. Note-taking in a team meeting, allow them to send to me for review. I will delegate that one more down is what AI tools can you use as a note taker so that you aren't using talent to take notes. For some people, that's an option. You can just explore if that's an option for you. Let my son manage his college expenses. Absolutely, right? My daughter started like cleaning the bathroom simply by like cleaning the toilet with the wand, right? Low stakes. And then we moved on to bigger things. When I thought about training, it was like, hey, put this slide together versus putting this whole deck together. So these are all, I want you to start thinking about these stakes that you can delegate. And if you're not comfortable with somebody making a mistake, the stakes are still too high. I love it. Yep. Shimla, I've let my daughter fly on her own too. And she has a lot of travel confidence now. So we talked about when to delegate. Let's talk about what you should delegate. So here's some questions you can ask yourself. Is this a development opportunity for me? If you can do this in your sleep, it could be time to delegate this. If you can run this report, if you can lead this course, if you can, do this sort of project, perhaps it's time for you to delegate. Ask yourself, does this surge my energy? Like, does this even make me excited? Did it maybe make me excited at one point, but it just doesn't anymore? If it doesn't surge your energy and it drains your energy, it's probably a resilience buster because you're dreading it all day long. So if it doesn't surge your energy, where can you delegate or outsource it to someone who it would surge their energy? Am I the only member of my team in the meeting? This is one of the very first things I delegated. I'll never forget sitting in a meeting in corporate. It was like my 6th meeting of the day. I hadn't eaten lunch. I just wanted to get out of there. And I looked around the room and there was 2 of my direct reports in that meeting. And quite frankly, my direct reports knew way more about the topic than I did. But because I was in the meeting, my direct reports would answer questions. And what would people do? They would turn and they would look at me. They're like, are they right? Just my presence in the meeting as the hippo, the highest paid person's opinion, was hindering their development. So I went to the people in the meeting and I said, I am no longer going to attend this meeting. These 2 individuals are fully capable of making the decisions. They are the decision makers. And I let those people know, I'm going to let you make these decisions, right? We can delegate that decision-making authority and get ourselves out of meetings that we should no longer be sitting in them. Yep, absolutely, Kathy. It is a game changer because you give people practice in lower stakes meetings to have conversations without you, to build their confidence and to make low stakes decisions. And the last question is this aligned to my skills and my talents and my values? And if it's not, how can I delegate or outsource this? So we talked about when to delegate when the stakes are low. Here's tools on what to delegate. Let's talk about how to delegate. So when we delegate these things, how can we make sure that we are communicating the purpose? Why are we doing this? The people that need to be involved, right? Who is the decision maker? Who do you need to consult on this decision? Who is just going to be the informed? What processes need to be followed? This is a good opportunity to be like, hey, here's where I need you to adhere to standard process. Here's where you have leeway. As you make these decisions, this is the processes that need to be followed. Here's where you have a little creative juice. And then performance. What does great look like? I expand on these much more fully in my book, but really having a shared definition of what success looks like. Not what we think that they should just know it looks like, but like, what are the key metrics? What are the key outcomes that we are going to know if we are successful? So as we land the plane, I want to just kind of leave you with some thoughts about optimizing your energy and optimizing for resilience, because to sustain our roles as leaders in the long game, this becomes about optimizing our energy, optimizing about where we spend our time. It's not about giving all of our energy, but it's about optimizing our energy. So over the last 60 to 90 days, your homework from this course is to look at your calendar and just do an energy audit and just notice what sucked your energy. What reports are you still running because you started it during COVID and you're still doing it because you haven't even asked if we look at it yet? What meetings are you sitting in that you got invited to 2 years ago and you're still going because it's a recurring meeting on your calendar? Like, what have you said yes to that is no longer a fit for you, that is just draining your energy? And you can do this at work and you can do it at home. What stalls your energy? What just feels energetically neutral for you? It's not giving you life. It's not necessarily taking life away from you. You know, we can kind of get stuck in the golden handcuffs a little bit here because a lot of people like to give high achievers things because you get things done, but it kind of stalls your energy a little bit. And then what are your energy surgers? What are these things that absolutely make you geek out? Where do you love spending time? What do you hope you get asked to do? And I want you just to notice where you're spending your energy. Because remember, like the more aligned our talents and our values and our strategies are, the more it's likely to surge our energy. And the question we want to ask is what generates an optimal amount of challenge? Because here's the thing. There is a type of burnout that's called rust out. And rust out comes from not using enough of your talents, right? It's like a ponytail holder that's too big. It's not going to hold your ponytail. It's worthless. Tell me in the chat, have any of you ever been in a job where you got burned out because you were just so dang bored? You weren't using any of your talents. I know I've been there. I left a job once like that. So this is why I wanted us to really think about optimizing our energy, because resilience is not about no challenge at all, right? Where like the ponytail holder is too big, can't hold our hair, there's no tension. But it's also not about stretching yourself to the max where you're so stressed out. It's about creating an optimal amount of tension. Because in that discomfort, in those satisfaction challenges, right? Those things that we do that are stretching our comfort zone, but at the end, we're like, oh, that felt good, you know, because we learned something. What creates an optimal amount of challenge so that you don't get burnt out by rust out, but you're feeling fulfilled and strategic at work because you're pushing your growth edges. So your homework, after you do your calendar audit, I want you just to ask yourself, these are questions you can ask yourself right now. You can do them today. What can you dump? What is on your calendar that just doesn't need to get done anymore? You can dump it. You can outsource it to AI. What can you delegate? What's on your calendar that you can delegate to your team, that you can delegate to, if you don't have children, I'm looking at my neighbors' houses. They have teenage children who enjoy earning money. So like dog walking, lawn mowing, simple household chores. What can you delegate either at home or what can you delegate at work? If you can't dump it, you can't delegate it. What can you outsource? Who can you hire to come help you? Before I was remarried and it was just my daughter and I outsourced all my lawn care. I did not want to be spending my time there when I could be spending time with my daughter, because spending time with my daughter was more in alignment to my goals and my values and the type of mom that I wanted to become. So at the end of the day, we talked about a few things. How do we foster optimal resilience, flexibility, not by doing more, but by stepping into our roles as leaders and doing less? How do we optimize our yeses by focusing on saying yes in alignment with our goals and our values and letting all the other no's be no's? How do we express our expectations and teach others to treat us so that we can optimize our energy in the things that we're working on? How do we shift our identity by just allowing for discomfort that comes not only when we step into those higher level roles as leaders, but by accepting that discomfort that comes when we watch people struggle as they learn new challenges? And how, what, when, and how can we delegate these low stakes items so that we can advance from high achiever to strategic leader while maximizing this resilience tension and keeping ourselves resilient so that we don't break like my poor band right here that's been stretched far too thin. Because at the end of the day, somebody is counting on your unique calling. There is something that you have been gifted that only you can offer the world. And if you're spending all of your time and energy doing unpaid work, things that don't like your fire, non-promotable tasks, you're saying yes to everyone to keep their peace, but you're losing your own peace. Like it hides all of these unique gifts that our organizations are counting on, our communities are counting on, our families are counting on. So somebody is counting on your unique calling. And by optimizing your energy as a leader, you can give that gift better to the world. So with that, I hope you took away 4 keys to help you be a little bit more of a resilient and confident leader. I would love if you'd want to stay in touch by giving me a follow. I love hanging out on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And so follow me and like message me. I always love hearing from folks. Like I went to your thing and then I did the thing and this happened. So definitely keep in touch. Or if you're like me And you think of all the questions you wish you would have asked me at about 10 o'clock tonight. Make sure we're connected on social media so that you can ask me those questions. I always love hearing from you. And the book chapter has everything that I talked about today, along with the toolkit. So with that, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn this back over to Darla and see if you have anything else you would like to add, or if we want to take any questions from the chat. I'll let you drive the next step.
Wow, Kelli, thank you. And yes, I know we are going to get a replay of this that will be on our website, but I still took a ton of notes. So thank you. The thing that stuck out to me the most was embracing the discomfort, being comfortable with being uncomfortable long enough to learn from it. I would love, before everybody starts popping off, share one nugget that you got from today so we can all just communicate and stay engaged with each other about something that you learned today that helps you, that you can take back into your leadership role, even starting today. I love that. Thanks. We can come to our calendar right now and start making a difference. And I've loved how everyone has been responding. Thank you all for registering, being engaged. And Kelli, thank you so much for your leadership. You have been phenomenal. Again, as you always have been. We enjoy having you with us. I want to, while people are doing this, I do want to take
all these learnings. This is such a good idea. Thank you, Darla.
I want to thank our sponsors. Kelli, had it not been for all our sponsors today, this would not have been a free opportunity for everyone out there. Thank you all to our sponsors. If you are interested in being a sponsor with Momentum, please just give us a call, reach out to us. We would love for you to be on this board and be part of the people who are helping make a difference in the community. A few little housekeeping things here. We do have an amazing conference coming up in March. Please get registered, go to our website, talk to your friends, give us a call. Seats are filling up very quickly, and we would love to have you there. You're going to just love everything that we're going to be doing in that. Also, another free opportunity we have offered here at Momentum is our mentoring program. If you are wanting to be a mentor or you're looking for a mentor, please reach out to us. We are growing in that capacity, and it is amazing all the women we are reaching here. And you can start applying everything in mentoring right here with what Kelli's taught you today. And thank you again, Kelli, for everything. Next month, save the date. It will be March 13th is going to be our next virtual training with Martina Winston. So take a look also on our website and get registered there for that. Thank you, Kelli, again. Can't wait to see you again. And I know you've got your book behind you, but I just want to remind everybody, please take a look at this book. If you haven't got it ordered yet, this would be the day to do it. We have loved this book, and I use it and pull a lot from it, as well as getting signed up for her newsletter. So everyone have a wonderful, incredible day. And thank you, Kelli.
Thanks, everybody. Go say no.
Momentum's virtual trainings are made possible with the support of Protective Life, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama, and America's Thrift. Find the full list of sponsors as well as additional resources for women leaders on our website at momentumleaders.org. Thanks for taking the time to invest in you, and remember to like, subscribe, and share our channel. We love reading thoughts and comments, so you can leave those for us here too. You can also connect with us on Instagram, Facebook,